so on. But for the most part, almost everything that we're going to be doing is going to be recorded in one form or another. If I have a previous recording that I've made that I think is better than what I was more on my game that day than I was this day, I might substitute that, but I'm still recording everything I do here. Okay, so it's important you have access to Blackboard and email. Periodically, I'll be sending you updates, changes, things that are happening in the course, reminders about assignments and homework, about exams, and so on and so forth. So it's important that you check Blackboard every once in a while, every couple of days, for instance. And when I put an announcement up on Blackboard, I also broadcast it so you receive it as an email. But that only works if the email address that you have on Blackboard as your default email is one that you check frequently. So in other words, if you use Gmail 90% of the time, but you have your Hunter email there as your default email on Blackboard, that's great, but you got to check your Hunter email every once in a while, because you won't see it in your Gmail. I don't think it's possible. I don't think they let you forward mail in the mail system, right? Which is bizarre. I don't know why they. I guess that's a security thing, but it's a real pain in the butt, because it's nice to be able to, forward your email to something you check all the time. But if you're going to leave it as your Hunter email as the default, check it every once. So make sure you go online on the web thing, or you go on your mail program or something like that and check your Hunter email, or change it on Blackboard to an email that you really receive, that you really check periodically. Like I said, when I make an announcement, I'll be broadcasting it. I'll be putting it on Blackboard, but I'll also be sending it out as an email to everybody that's registered in the class. In order to encourage you to keep up with the course, I have a little bit of a spin on the homework policy on Blackboard, on what that I have in the syllabus, and that is that for each of the homework assignments, we'll have approximately 8 formal homework assignments. It's really a little bit more than that, because, for instance, homework number 3 might cover a topic that I really wind up splitting up into 3 different topics. Like when we do t-tests, we have something called a single sample t-test, independent sample t-test, paired sample t-test. I might have like homework 3A, 3B, and 3C, because it's, just rather than put all the problems into one homework. It's convenient to split them up so you get a mindset about what you need to do on that particular homework. But in order to encourage you to keep up with that, with the homework, in other words, keep up with the course homework. And for instance, the syllabus right now might show homework number 1 is due a certain day. I'll actually be putting on the homework when I publish it, when I make it available. I'll put on it what the homework date is. Okay. Okay, yeah, you have to mute it. Yeah, you have to turn the sound off. You can use a little sound bar at the bottom. If you go down to the bottom of the page, on the right-hand side, you see a little speaker. Okay, and you guys at home might have the same problem. If you hear an echo, or if you hear any noise or feedback, make sure that your microphone is muted. Okay, you can get rid of that either by muting the microphone or turning the sound off. Right, you don't need the sound. So when you're at home and log on, right, make sure, and you're using headphone. If you're using headphones or your laptop, use speaker on there, speaker and the microphone on there. Make sure you mute you're gonna have to leave the speaker on if you want to hear me when you're at home. But make sure you mute your microphone when you log on. Okay. Now I can mute everybody on here. It didn't work here for some reason, maybe because we're doing it right in the same room. But if you don't mute your microphone, anything that is going on in your room, including my voice coming out of the speaker, is going to be heard for everybody that's on the on this community video that we're doing. Okay, and that means dogs barking, children crying, domestic disputes, anything that's going on is going to be on there, and we don't need that either live or in the recording, right? So please remember to mute. And if you guys are online, if you notice that there's an issue like that, like somebody's got their microphone on or something like that, let me know, and I'll attempt to mute it from here. Okay, but you got to let me know about it, otherwise it'll go on for a while. Okay, so the deal about the homework is that whatever the due date I published, and sometimes I'll be a little bit off from the syllabus because I'll be doing the homeworks, I'll be releasing them as we progress in the course. So it might be a little later than it says in the syllabus. I might make it available a little later because we haven't really covered the material yet. I just want to put it up there, and then it's a mystery for you. You have no way to to complete it. So keep an eye. I'll put the due dates on the homeworks themselves, so you can use that. And if you have an issue, if there's a problem or something like that, and it's confused, don't worry about it. We'll deal with it one way or another. But the deal is that if you submit, you can submit as many attempts on homework as you want, right? In other words, you can do the homework. For the most part, most of the homeworks will self-grade. They will tell you which questions you got right and which you got wrong, but it won't tell you the answers, right? So that means you can try the homework. If you get 60% or something like that, you can go back and try it again, right? You can do that as many times as you want, right? The deal is, though, is that you have to make at least one attempt at the homework before the due date. If you make one attempt at the homework before the homework assignment is due, you can, anytime during the semester, you can come back and redo that homework for a higher grade. Once, 5 times, 10 times. I've had students, they'll try homework, and the first time around, they'll get 40%, 4 out of 10 problems right. Then they'll go back, they get the 5th one right. Then they'll go back again, they'll get a 7 of them are right. And they'll do it 7 times till they get 100%. Well, what does that mean? That means 2 things. Number one, you're at least keeping up with the course, right? It forces you to keep up with the course to get that opportunity, number one. And number 2, it means that there's no reason for you not to get 100% on all of the homeworks, right? Because you can always go back and do them again. So that's 40% of your grade, right? That covers, if you stumble on one of the exams, we got 2 exams. We have 2 or 3 exams. We'll talk about that in a second. If you stumble on the exams, you have a problem on one of the exams, you don't perform quite as well as you thought you were going to do, that 40% of your grade that you have in the bank goes a long way towards mitigating, how serious that is. So it's really meant to encourage you to do that, to keep up with the course. As far as exams are concerned, we're going to have 2 exams. We're going to have 1 exam at a certain point, probably in about 5 weeks or so. We'll have the first exam. I didn't count it off on the syllabus, but it's around that time. Then we'll have a second exam about 2/3 of the way through the semester, maybe a little bit more than 2/3 of the way through the semester. The exams are open book. You don't have to, anything that's on Blackboard, anything that's in the textbook, in your notes and so on and so forth, you can reference any of that stuff, anything that you can get to from Blackboard. You can't collaborate on the exams. You got to do it yourself. Yeah, you're on your honor, obviously. If you're taking the exam is going to be online because some people are taking this course online. You're welcome to come in here and take them here if you want to, but you may take them online. So you can't collaborate on them. You can collaborate on the homework. If you guys want to get together as a group in the whatever it is we call that little area over there where people sit on the stools and eat, I wouldn't call it a cafeteria necessarily. If you want to get it together out there and work on the homework together, I have no objection to that. It's great, as a matter of fact. I used to do that when I was a graduate student. So I've no collaboration on the homework, no problem, but not on the exams. So the exams are non-cumulative. The first exam, the first exam will cover the material up to that point. The second exam will cover the material from that point to the next exam. At the end of the last 4 sessions or so, we'll be covering a couple of other topics. I'm going to give you the opportunity to choose one of 2 paths. You can either take a 3rd exam, again, non-cumulative, only covering the new material, or to do a modest project. The modest project is going to involve me providing you with several sets of data, a lot of it like data published by the New York City Department of Health or the National Nutrition Survey and Haynes. I'll provide you with that data or give you a way to get to that data, and then choosing some variable, something in there you want to examine, and performing a statistical test on it, maybe looking up an article or 2, kind of in the sense of if you're doing a thesis or something like that, a little background material, and for a 5 or 6 page report, which is kind of like a poster presentation. We'll worry about that then, but it's modest. It's not going to be like you're not doing a capstone here. It's going to be a relatively modest project. So you have an option doing that or doing or taking an additional exam at the end of the semester. We'll discuss that after we get through the second test. Second exam is really when we'll get pretty intense on that, the last 4 weeks or so. Okay, and I'll give you all the details on that as we go. Maybe about midway through the semester, I'll give you the details on it so you can start to think about what you want to do. Okay, so each week I will be posting material on Blackboard. Typically, it'll be some lecture material, which is going to cover some theory and stuff like that. And a lot of times I will either be doing that in class, in other words, putting up a PowerPoint and boring you to death in class with this theoretical stuff. And then I will be going over to some exercises and some lab work and so on and so forth, where I'll actually go over the material again from the different perspective, from more of an application perspective. Some sessions I might put up recordings by another professor or another person for covering that material, because I think maybe it explains it better, or something like that. But most of the lab stuff and the exercises I'll be going over with you. Like today, we'll do a little bit of both. But each week the material will be in a folder for that week. There's going to be an assignments tab. You probably don't see it now. I probably have it turned off. There'll be an assignments tab on the side where you can click on and see the assignments and be able to upload stuff. The first thing by the next day or two, I'm going to make that available, that assignments tab, because you'll be able to click on that and you'll have a place where you can click on assignment 0, which is really not an assignment, more of a course requirement. And that's going to be a place where you can upload your certificate for the ethics and public health course. Okay, so you can click on that, you can browse on your computer and upload a copy of the certificate there. I'll also post something on the announcements with some more detail on what version. I guess you already have that already pretty much. You're logging on as a CUNY student for the institution, and you're completing the certificate in HSR, Human Subjects Research, for graduate, postgraduate, doctoral students, I think, in social and behavioral research, something like that. But it's obvious. Once you see it, it's obvious. You got about 8 choices that you can pick from, but the one that I'm talking about is pretty obvious. And I'll put the formal name up in an announcement so that you know which one it is. It consists of, how many of you guys have done it already? So we got a few people who've done it. Basically, it's a series of readings, like maybe a few pages of information, a description of issues that have come up, ethical issues come up in handling information and disclosure and health effects of different kinds of research involving humans, things that have happened in the past, problems that have been in the past, how research is structured in universities nowadays to protect human subjects and so on. So you'll be reading different modules, a few pages long, and then at the end of each module, it's about 7, 8 modules. At the end of each module, you'll answer 4 or 5 multiple choice questions. I think you're supposed to get 80% or something like that. You can go back and retake the questions again, just like the homework. You can go back and redo them. So it's not anything that's difficult to do. It's really interesting reading for the most part. The only thing is that it could take up to about 5. How long do you guys take to do that? The guys that have done it, maybe 4 or 5 hours, 5, 6, 5 hours. Yeah. So it's kind of, and like, it's hard to do that online continuously. I encourage you to do that now before you get buried in work in the semester. I can't tell you how many students I have every semester that wait until a week before the end of the semester. Now they got to write a paper for this course. They got to do something for this course. They got to do some field research. Got to do 80 other things. They got to study for a final. And they're just now thinking about doing it. So I encourage you to do it now because it'll save you a lot of misery at the end of the semester, trying to find the 5 hours to sit in front of a computer and do that. So you should do that. Now, as far as the textbook is concerned, in the syllabus, it says the 3rd edition. I posted the syllabus 2 weeks ago or something like that when I first submitted and put it up. The only problem with it is that they almost immediately released a new version of the open source textbook, right? Biostatistics, Intro to Biostatistics, the open source text. By the way, for those of you guys who haven't downloaded it yet, the textbook we're using is an open source textbook. In other words, it's put together by a collaboration of statisticians that have made this available for free, basically. And it's not. It's actually not. It's certainly no worse than any other biostatistics textbook, and it reads like a regular statistics textbook. It has problems, it has answer sets, and so on and so forth. They also have on their website, they have a lot of material, videos, and so on and so forth. As I said, up until 3 weeks ago, the third edition was available on their website. They just released the fourth edition. Now, some of you already downloaded it. It's free. It's a PDF file. You can download it for free. You can buy a print version of it from Amazon, from a couple other different sources. I have that on Blackboard for anywhere from about 15 bucks for a black and white version to about 25 bucks for a color version. You can buy a print version and they'll ship it to you. If you already bought the print version, I would download the fourth edition, but I'll try, and if I see some discrepancy between the sections I'm telling you to read in the third edition and the fourth edition, I'll let you know, or maybe you can let me know that you notice. Somebody, I don't know if it's this class or the other class, somebody's already mentioned that. I looked forward and there's a problem with, October, like that. There's some students are better at looking ahead than I am, so somebody's already told me there's problems, with the sections that I put in there and what they cover. But we'll deal with that, right? But you certainly should download the fourth edition. Unfortunately, they don't have a red line version. You guys know what a red line version of a textbook is? They put it out for instructors sometimes. It's when they show you they red line the differences between the original and the new edition. They don't have that. So I have no way to, without really kind of looking at them side by side, I have no way to know what the differences are. But we'll figure that out. Okay, so just so you know that's the situation. There's two concurrently available versions of this thing. Download the free PDF. When you go on there, it says, oh, you got a big donation button. It's gigantic, fills the whole screen for, I think, 15 bucks or something like that. It's not required. If you don't got the 15 bucks, don't feel bad about not putting it up. I paid it. I'm an instructor. I'm getting paid to be here. You are paying to be here. So if you don't have the money for it, don't sweat it. Just go ahead and download it for free. Now, the other thing that we'll be requiring in this course is some software. We'll be working mostly with Excel and with SPSS. Excel, I'm going to be going through a PowerPoint on all of this shortly. So I'll give you some more details on. So I'm going to pause right here because I know I'm going to be repeating myself in a few moments anyway. Anybody so far have any questions? No questions at all? How many of you guys expect to be showing up here regularly in class? Okay, that's okay. You don't have to, right? In other words, the way this course, I know Dr. Navdar used to encourage me, or used to actually require her nutrition track students to show up like brick and mortar, like a regular class, right? She didn't say that this semester. She said, "Oh, Tony, it's okay. Are you planning on still doing the in-class sessions?" Yes, I'm going to be. Unless there's 8 inches of snow, maybe more than that, maybe a foot of snow outside, I'll be here doing it here. If there's 24 inches of snow, I'll be doing it from my bedroom in my shorts. So so I won't be here. Don't worry about it. I'm not turning the webcam on. So if there's inclement weather, it's really ridiculous. We're getting into the fall and winter semester, so that happens. So I will make an announcement that we won't be meeting here, but we'll still be having class because we can do it, in the ether, in the cloud or the ether or whatever it is. So let me open up some material that I want to go through. Some of this I'm going to wind up repeating myself. How about you guys online? Do you guys have any questions? Oh, somebody's almost done with the ethics course. Okay, it's interesting stuff, right? Who is that? That's Maria. Yep, Maria. Okay. Yeah, Another suggestion, once you're over 100 years old, you don't want to buy 12-inch monitors and then have the resolution set at like some ridiculously high number so that the print's always tiny. That's still working behind me? You can see me doing this? Okay, good. That's weekly material. Did I put a video up here? Yes, I did put it. Oh, it's hidden from you. Okay, I'm going to go through this quickly. So to make sure I covered all the bases, I'll go through this quickly. And this will reintroduce this idea of the software and so on. Okay. Okay, starters. Yeah, let me tell you who I am, first of all. I told you my name, that's about it. Tony DeVito. My email address is anthony.devito, DEVITO, at sph.cuny.edu. That's going to be your main way of contacting me, okay? Unfortunately, as an adjunct, I don't have an office here. My office is parked at a meter on 2nd Avenue. So, you know, the best way to get in touch with me is by email. The other way to get in touch with me is by using, so this is an online course. We're going to make extensive use of the discussions forums on Blackboard. How many of you have ever used the discussions forum on Blackboard? Oh, not many. Okay, good. I'm going to set up a another kind of assignment. 0 is going to be for you to post a thread on the discussions forum introducing yourself. You know, who you are, why you're taking the course, a little bit of background. In reality, you can make it up. It's really, the exercise is there just so I know you know how to use Blackboard, right? So I know you know how to use the forum because we're going to make extensive use of it. Basically, it's a bulletin board, electronic bulletin board. I'm going to ask you, so don't you don't have to post any more personal information than you want to. It doesn't even have to be true. You know, just isn't it? Is there a thing that they do sometimes when you I teach a lot of seminars, you know, safety courses and stuff like that, and I very often I teach it with other instructors, and everybody's got their own shtick on what they do as an introduction. You know, they go around the room, who are you? They make everybody stand up, and one of them I know is one guy. What he does is he has each person talk to that person next to them, who's a stranger, and interview them for 5 minutes. And then he makes everybody give the bio of the person they were talking to, not their own, right? And another guy does, what he does is he asks each person to tell you 3 things about themselves, 2 of which are true and 1 of them is not true, and makes everybody guess which one's not true. So everybody has their own way of doing this kind of stuff. But the discussions forum is my way of kind of doing this because I want you to be able to communicate with each other and with me with the discussions forum, particularly because if there's a question about an assignment, if there's an issue on an exam, I give you several days. Since we're going to do the exams online, not everybody's necessarily going to be able to do it at the same time. So I give you a window of time. You may have 3 hours to do it once you start, but you have 3 days to decide when to actually start, right? So someone may come up and say, hey, there's a problem with question number 3, and it's inconsistent. So I can put a comment or a clarification there that anyone else that's taking an exam, if they have that problem, they can go to the discussions forum, look under the thread for exam 1 questions and answers, and see the same feedback I've given the other students. So it's fair for everybody. So it's really important that you know how to use these things. The only thing I ask when you send me emails, please put the course number in the subject line of the email. The reason for that is that I have my email program set up. So if it sees PH750 or even PH with a space in 750, either one, if it sees that, it throws it into a special folder and highlights it for me. So it's literally like a red light going off. I can't miss your email. If you don't put that in the subject line, I get, you know, I've used the same email address for a long time, and you can imagine what kind of spam and stuff I winds up in my spam folder and so on and so forth, or just winds up under the radar. I just don't notice it, right? But if you do that, it's really difficult for me to miss it, right? So, and typically I can reply within 24 to 48 hours. I put that down technically, but usually I'm checking every day. So usually I can get back to even less than quicker than that. So that's why you should get in touch with me. I once maybe, I've been an adjunct for 22 years, believe it or not, maybe 23, 22 or 23 years. It's like what was the expression they had? Um, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Something. What is that? Am I right about this? I'm always an adjunct, never a professor. So that's me. So anyway, I'm kind of saying the academic version of that. So I've been doing it for a long time. My profession is mostly environmental occupational health science. Right now, I'm retired from my day job, but I'm doing consulting work on cooling towers and particularly Legionnaire's disease, which has been a big issue in the city for the last few years. Have new regulations on cooling towers and so on and so forth. I also teach at Rutgers. I teach the School of Public Health over here and so on. Trying to think of the name of the guy. I teach whenever they give me an opportunity. I can't think of the name of the guy. It'll come to me in a little while. There was I'll think of it and I'll bring it up later. Okay, so usually before a test, I'll do an extra online review session or something like that, an hour or something like that, just to cover problems and questions you might have. So what's online? Well, we got brick and mortar, right? We know what that is. We're here. You guys are here. It's a brick and mortar course. You're showing up here. Okay, it's getting expensive to do that. As expenses go up in institutions, space is an issue, maintaining equipment is a big issue, and so on and so forth. So more and more courses are starting to go online. This one of the rooms over at School of Public Health now. This course is in the cloud. Okay, wherever that may be. That's a server, could be anywhere, server farm. I'm recording this stuff on GoToMeeting, which is a commercial product, on their servers. So that could be in California. Who knows where it might be. So you may be sitting at home watching this course on a computer just like that. Some of you guys are doing. How many of you guys look like that right now online? Right? Sitting with a potted plant right next to your computer. Okay, or maybe a cocktail or something like that. Okay, so the course technically is offered fully online, but so in-person attendance is not required, but it's really a hybrid course. You're welcome to, we're going to broadcast from here as often as we can, so normally, and to ignore that Silberman stuff, that's from somewhere else. Oh, no, that's right, that's Silberman, we are Silberman. Sometimes I don't know what building I'm in because I'm teaching a couple of different places. So it's offered in person here. You're welcome to come in here each time we have the session, and as some of you indicated, you intend on doing this. And it'll normally be Mondays, unlike today, Mondays between about 1:30 and 4 o'clock. Okay, so we'll be here during that period of time. If you can't make it, you can attend by watching us live online right now. Literally, what you're seeing behind me and what you're hearing from my mouth is what people at home are seeing on their computer screens. Matter of fact, one of the things I might mention to you is that you can get to this course when we start at 1:30 on Monday by typing into your browser, go to meet.me, GOMET.me/CUNY, CUNY, public health, no spaces. If you did that now on your computers, you would see what's back here on your screens. Now, you may find that convenient because, eventually as we get into this as we proceed during this session even, right? So we're going to be working with Excel and, Microsoft Word and so on and so forth. And you may want to mirror what I'm doing with the software on your own workstations. But now you're going to be craning your neck and looking over somebody's head to see this. You can literally see this screen in a window on your computer if you want to, just by doing that. You can do it now if you want to, so you don't have to turn towards me if you don't want to. But I'll mention that again as we get further into this. Within about 24 to 48 hours, I'll be able to download the video that I've recorded, to edit it a little bit, and then put it onto YouTube and send you a link to it. Post it on Blackboard and send an email with a link to how you can access it. Unfortunately, really formal online courses where you don't really have live interaction like this, if you've seen them like edX and Coursera and Phoenix and all these other online colleges and so on and so forth, most of them there's really not a live session. You watch a recording and then you do some exercises and you watch a recording and so on and so forth. Most of the time, those are broken up into 10 or 15-minute segments. This is not going to be quite like that. It's going to be broken up into big segments, an hour, 2 hours, and so on and so forth. But you can always scrub to the part that you want to access, right? Once you got it online, you can just, if you don't want to watch the first 20 minutes, you can just scrub. When I get the chance, I'll actually maybe annotate it and tell you, well, this is when we started on this topic. This one, so you can scrub to that spot if that's all you want to see. Okay, so you can watch online live right now, as some people are doing from home right now each week, or you can take the course time shifted. You can just watch the recordings of what we're doing here right now as if it were live, but you might be watching it on Saturday night after you got home from the Metallica concert. You turn the sound up because usually you come home from a heavy metal concert, you can't hear much. You're going to have to turn the sound up a little bit. I teach a noise and radiation course, and I just so you know, I tell the students, just to give them an idea of when they demonstrate when they experience temporary hearing loss. I tell them next time you come home from a concert, right? So if you've driven your car, or if you're at home, and if you come into the house and you have a radio nearby or something like that, get a station that has the basically same content all the time. Turn it on, set it to a comfortable level for what you want to hear, right? And then just kind of mark that, or if you're in a car, just set your radio at that level. And I guarantee you the next day when you start that car up, it's going to seem like it's blaring because you're literally experiencing temporary hearing loss, right? But recover, that's why temporary recover. But you do that enough times, enough concerts, eventually you don't recover anymore. Okay. But that's the other course. If you want to take my noise and radiation course, I'll tell you about it someday. Okay, what are we going to cover? We're going to cover common statistical concepts, methods, descriptive statistics, means, medians, variability. We're going to cover hypothesis testing, how to compare one group to another group, a drug to a placebo, a public health intervention to see how it changes performance, and so on and so forth. We're gonna learn a lot about stuff. We're mostly gonna be working with software to help us do the calculations. Okay, so, and I'll talk more about that. And the software we're going to be using is going to include SPSS and Excel. There is a free online programming language, basically called R. Anybody know what R is? Anywhere ever worked for it? You can download it. You can download R. It's a program that you can type in commands and open files with data in it, do statistical analyses and so on and so forth. And they even have overlays for it. So it makes it not just typing in individual commands, but it makes it a little bit more menu driven as well, like RStudio and stuff. They're free. You can download them. If you're really adventurous, you're into using your computers, you're kind of a little bit of a math geek, you might be interested in doing it. You can use it. You can use R. You can even use SAS, which is another statistical program like SPSS, which I'll talk about in a second, which is used by the department. A lot of public health departments. New York City Department of Health uses SAS for the most part. It's very similar to SPSS, a little bit more intense in terms of being command driven rather than menu driven. A little bit harder to use, I think. But you may use, if you want some experience with them, you want to work with them, or you know them, you can use them instead of SPSS. Right? You can use any software you want that'll get the job done. We're going to be supporting Excel and SPSS for this class. Excel comes as part of the Microsoft Office package. Okay, you can go online to the bookstore and to the CUNY First site, and you can connect to somewhere where you can get a discount for Microsoft Office. Right? You're really of that stuff. You're really only going to need Excel and probably some sort of word processing program like Word, which is part of it. Most of you guys probably already have that. I mean, it's hard to exist in this world without having that stuff. If you're really desperately broke, there are open source versions of them. There's something called NeoOffice. Anybody heard of that? NeoOffice or Open Office, anything like that? There are actually two free programs that imitate Word and Excel, right? And I even think they have a PowerPoint version. They actually will open and edit Word documents and Excel documents. So if you're really desperate, you can use that. But I think for the most part, most of you guys have access to Excel and Word, which we'll be using. SPSS, a little bit different. Yes. I don't know. I'll tell you what. You tell me. Okay, as we go through the exercise, tell me if it works. If really what's gonna determine whether you can or not is whether the same functions that are available in Excel are available in Google Sheets. And my guess would be is they're going to be available. The ones that we're going to use are probably going to be available because what are they doing but trying to steal Microsoft's business, right? So I suspect you probably will be able to do that. I'm good. I'm glad you brought that up. Maybe I'll add that to some of the syllabus material. So, but we'll be dealing with Excel and SPSS in the classroom during exercises for the most part. SPSS is owned by IBM. They bought it up about 5 or 10 years ago or something like that. It's specifically used for statistical analyses. When we open it up, it's going to look like Excel, but it's not Excel. That doesn't work anything like Excel, just kind of looks like it. It's got that kind of row and column kind of layout. But it's really intended to do statistical analysis only. Excel does a lot of stuff. You can design an airplane, you can finance your house, you can calculate loans on Excel. But SPSS is really strictly a statistical program. You're going to have to buy it, actually lease it. It's available, again, there's a link on Blackboard that you can go to, or you can even just Google IBM SPSS student versions, and it'll take you to an IBM website where they have, I think, 3 or 4 choices for places you can buy it online, download it, and purchase a license for it. You're going to need that. There are 2 versions that you're interested in. There's the graduate pack base version and the grad pack standard version. The base version costs about $35, $40, right, for a 6-month license. Costs like about maybe $70 for a 12-month license, which you might want if you're going to take EPI next semester. You might go for the 12-month license. The base version is about $35, $40. The standard version is about $45 or $50. The main difference between the two is that there is one topic that's in the one function that's in the standard version. It's not in the base version, 10 or 15 bucks more, and that's logistic regression. We're going to introduce it this semester. I'm not going to put it on an exam or anything like that. It's on SPSS, is on all of the computers in this room, all the computers in this building, in the library, in virtually any computer that you would have access to at CUNY. You'll find SPSS available. So if you want to save the 10 bucks and you don't think you're going to use it, just go for the base version. But the standard version will have logistic regression. We're going to cover that like the very last session. Chances are you're not going to get tested on it. I'm not going to have an assignment on it, but it's kind of a little bit more advanced topic. But it's something you should be aware exists. And if you want to play around with it, you think you're going to play around with it, you might want to spend the extra 10 or 15 bucks so you can try a couple of exercises with it. Okay, so I encourage you to download it. The first assignment is going to use Excel and SPSS. I'm going to give you at least a week like from today. I'm going to probably post the first assignment by tomorrow. I'm going to give you at least from now and the rest of this week and all of next week to get to it. The reason for that is you're going to have to get SPSS in order to complete it, Excel and SPSS. And again, that's kind of like the homework. I'm doing that on purpose because I want you to make sure that you get it, that you have it available to you, you have access to it. I can't bend your arm, make you buy it. You can, if you want, just rely on the ones that are here. But it's like a bicycle. You don't ride it. I mean, you can learn how to. You can watch what I'm doing. And kind of think you learn SPSS. but you really need to actually use it to actually get, you got to get on the bike and ride it to really learn it. You can't just watch a video. Yes. Yeah, yeah. The exams will involve using SPSS and Excel. You got a bit more time for that because that's not for probably 5 weeks before you have to worry about the first exam. But the first homework is going to be due about a week and a half from now or so. You're going to need to have Excel and SPSS in place or have some access to it somehow or other so you can complete that assignment. I'm doing that on purpose again because I want you to keep you up to date with this so you don't fall behind. I don't like leaving people behind. I want everybody to keep up. If you know a little bit of elementary statistics, you remember a little bit, it's going to help. But I'm assuming that we're starting from scratch, so you know nothing about statistics. I took statistics in 1967, believe it or not. Okay, hard to believe, right? And the only thing I remember about the course in statistics I took was the girl that was sitting next to me in the class. It's hard to believe, but I was young once. Okay, so yeah, you got to be able to use a computer and a web browser. You have that expectation. You have access to Blackboard and Microsoft Access, Microsoft Office, or some substitute for it. Okay, and as I said, recorded live or online, and access to Blackboard. We'll have a lecture. We'll have lab demos and so on and so forth. I'll be recording all this, or I'll be providing older recordings if they're in pretty good shape. Okay. Access to Blackboard, need the textbook, either the third or fourth edition. I would at least, even if you already bought a print version of the third edition, I would at least download the fourth version, the PDF file version from openintro.org for free so that you have it available to you. I actually like the PDF version better because you can search a PDF. Right? If you got a topic, rather than having the thumb through paper, you can just search it. It looks like this. Looks like a real textbook. It is a real textbook. I shouldn't belittle it that way. This is what IBM SPSS looks like. Kind of looks like an Excel spreadsheet, but it really doesn't work that way. I think the current version that you'll see available for download is version 25. The version really doesn't make a difference. Anything from version 15 to 25 is basically the same program as far as we're concerned. There are other more sophisticated types of analysis that may be different, but they haven't changed anything that it really affects us. The important thing is that you get the right version for your computer. If you have a Mac, make sure you download the Mac version. If you got a PC, make sure you download the PC version. I think the PC version, some of the sites are asking for 32-bit or 64-bit. I think that the main difference is that the 32-bit will run on any computer, even older hardware, and the 64-bit where it runs on more modern stuff. So if you got a computer that's 5 years old, you might want to download the 32-bit one just to make sure. Or, ICIT or somebody in the library, guys up in the library, tech guys, might be able to tell you how to figure out what version, whether you have a 32-bit computer or a 64-bit computer. I don't think that's a big issue these days, though. Just make sure you get the right one. Now, this is not true for you guys. Unfortunately, guys at School of Public Health, they get it for free. So, not so far. Not so far. They have a problem with the licensing there, so they're not actually getting it for free. Yet. Okay, you guys have to buy it though. Okay, that's the city program. You'll see human subjects research, HSR, for grad students and postdoctoral students and so on. And again, CUNY is the institution that you're going to register as. If you've taken the course before, if it's less than a year since you took the course and got the certificate, up to a year, you can upload the certificate that you have. If it's more than a year, take the refresher course. Why do you think we're asking you to do that, by the way? Anybody have any idea why we're asking you to do that? Well, not so much in this course, but in the next courses you take. As you progress through the program, as you maybe have to do a capstone or a thesis. Do they call it in nutrition or the other programs here? Do they call it a thesis or a capstone? Capstone, yeah. Okay. So if you have to do a capstone or something like that, it's entirely conceivable that you may be required to collect data from humans, to involve to work with data someone else's personal data someone else has collected that involves people, right? So in order to make sure that you handle that material ethically and confidentially, they want you to understand what the rules are. That's what this is all about. So since for many people, this is one of the core courses, one of the first courses they take here. How many of you, this is the first course you're taking in this program? A couple, not, I'm kind of surprised because in the past I've had a lot of, especially in the fall semester, I had a lot of people that this is the first course they were taking. So this is one of the core courses. So they know you have to go through this path to get to the more advanced courses that uses the prerequisite. So that's why they tag that requirement onto this course. Okay. Okay, yeah. See, there's several options here. Human subjects, basic course. Okay. And I think we went through this attendance. Available online, good. Okay, that's not me, by the way. You guys, I put that down there because the guys online look at that guy, they think it's me. You guys can tell it's not me here, right? Every once in a while, before an exam, I'll probably do some sort of review session. And yeah, and then the maybe I should show this on Blackboard. That's what the discussions forums look like. And I'll open it up on Blackboard. Right now, nobody. Right, you're right about that, Maria. Exactly right. Right now, nobody is complaining that they can't hear me. I can't see you. The screen is blurry. I lost my pencil. Nobody is complaining online, and you guys are still watching me over there, and you can hear me, obviously, right? So we're going okay so far. Every once in a while, technology can fail. Reason why I do it this way, using a commercial product or the meeting, I paid like $35 a month to be able to do this. I can have up to 100 people at one time in a video conference. They have free versions. They can go on Google, what is it, Google Plus or something like that, or you can broadcast on YouTube. You can use Adobe Connect. You can and and there's actually a collaborate function on Blackboard where you can have video presentations that are recorded on Blackboard. Problem with it is I usually use a lot of software, so I'll be opening Excel, closing Excel, open SPSS, having them both open at the same time, opening Word, doing this, stopping recording, starting recording. And my experiences with those others is that every once in a while, if I push it enough, they crash. And if they crash, it's a disaster because now everybody's got to log off, everybody's got to log back on. So it's 20 minutes of wasted time. So I use this, but even with this, every once in a while, there's problems. Don't freak out. Don't panic. If there's a problem, we'll figure it. So we always wind up some way to get around it. Okay, what do you do next? Get familiar with Blackboard, download the textbook, get started on the program certificate, install Excel and SPS on your computer, and go to the discussions group. I'll set up that spot on the Blackboard discussions forum for you to be able to do that. Check Blackboard frequently. We're going to have weekly class materials before the class. And you'll see assignments and updates and so on and so forth on there. Okay, 3 big rules. Don't panic. Anybody ever read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? No one's that cheats. So all these books that were popular when I was in college, like Catch-22, and how many guys read Catch-22? Catcher in the Rye. I got it. Okay, good. Catcher in the Rye. Okay, good. We have one common source of reference, unfortunately. Unfortunately, that particular book is not a great thing to share, but that's a whole other discussion. Don't panic. That's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Keep up with the course. It'll be so much simpler for you, so much easier for you guys if you just don't take 3 weeks off and you try and keep up with the course. And like I said, we don't want to leave anybody behind. We'll finish this semester at the same time. They tend to be very rough on incompletes in CUNY. It really perhaps Hunter is not quite as bad as School of Public Health. I know in School of Public Health, the only incomplete they'll give you is if like you're deathly ill and you have almost completed the course. In other words, you missed the final or you couldn't get the project done or something like that. You had a little bit of work and you were passing the course at the time. So if you start to fall behind, you have an issue or something like that, get in touch with your advisor, make sure they know about it, and so on and so forth, because they're really reluctant to give out incompletes. And that's kind of it's above my pay grade, right? I don't really, I can let them know what status you have in the class, but I can't make the decision to give you whether or not you can take it incomplete or not. I'll try on the syllabus. I think I have the dates for withdrawal and refunds and whatever else. That I don't think I've done anything so far to scare you out of this course, but the day's not over yet. Okay. All right. You guys want to take a quick break? We want to keep going. Let's go a little bit further, okay? Just a little bit further. Okay, another PowerPoint. You won't be seeing me do too many PowerPoints. For the most part, I try and stay away from them. Whoops, that's the same slide. That's the wrong one. See if this is a different one. I think this is the other one. Nah. Okay, statistical calculation. I think this is the one I want to start with. What does it want? Okay, try and repair it. Okay, probably didn't work anyway. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this quickly, this PowerPoint, then we'll start to move on to the real material in the course. So one of the things we're dealing with here is that this is a math course. I hate to inform you of that. There is a certain amount of math involved here. I know that for a lot of people that makes you feel a little insecure, but we're going to approach it from a direction that's not going to emphasize too much of the math. It's going to emphasize more of the practice, putting the principle we learned and so on and so forth into practical use. And that's really what they're after, because you're going to be using it in future courses. Okay, when I took this course, remember I mentioned 1967? There were no calculators in 1967. And then that Texas Instrument came out with the SR10 or something like that a couple of years later. That's what I was using when I was doing calculations back then. I heard that flash a little bit, right? So things are very different now, right? We have computers, we have spreadsheets, and so on and so forth. We use slide rules, we use different kinds of devices. That's very early desktop calculator. We graduated, and literally you would do all of your calculations, adding, squaring, finding square roots, and so on and so forth on these kinds of devices. Most of the data that you were compiling, you do on paper. You'd be doing it before spreadsheets. You'd be doing it on ledger sheets, those big accounting sheets with a whole bunch of like vertical lines, credits and debits, and so on and so forth, like paper ledgers like this. Eventually, somebody created a program called a spreadsheet program, right? They turned the spreadsheet program. This is Dan Bricklin, and I can't think of the other guy's name right now. They created the first personal computer spreadsheet program. It's called VisiCalc. It was only available on the Apple II computer. In fact, the Apple II computer was available when there was just an explosion of personal computers that were available, small personal computers that were available for a variety of prices. They weren't the cheapest, they weren't the most expensive. They did have an advantage of being in color, which meant that it was popular with gamers and stuff, early gamers and stuff like that. But the thing that really pushed the sale and really put Apple on the map was this program. This spreadsheet program could only run on Apple computers. Right? So that was unique to Apple, and literally businesses would buy $2,000 Apple computers to run this $100 software program, which was the first spreadsheet. And we're going to talk about why spreadsheets are pretty unique. And then one of the reasons is that in spreadsheets, you can embed formulas. You can do calculations. You can have a list of 100 numbers, find the sum of them, square that number, find the a tangent of that number, do financial calculations, and so on and so forth. And you can, within the different cells, within the different boxes on a spreadsheet, you could bury functions that do very complex things in just that one cell. So you add all these things together, you do all these complex calculations, and then later on, if you find that there's an error in the data that you put in, one of those numbers is wrong, well, unlike a paper spreadsheet that we used to use, if you change that number, that spreadsheet automatically updates. So that all of your calculations are redone automatically and it's all corrected. In the past, you would have to, at NASA, have you guys seen the movie Numbers? Is it called Numbers? Am I right? About the people, the women that were calculators for the early, not the Apollo, but the Mercury missions. No, nobody's seen that movie? Get out of here. Seriously. It's about women's empowerment. It's about the women of color in the South. It's a brilliant movie. Do I have the right title for that, right? Numbers? That's the movie, right? It's not the right name.
I don't think it's the right title, but I know.
Yeah, what is that called? Hidden Figures. That's it. Have you guys seen that number? Hidden Figures. Right. Okay, so that's what they did. They calculated this stuff, with mechanical calculators, and they were called calculators because they literally did calculations. That was their job. Right. So you scared me for a second there. That nobody had seen that. Jeez. Especially I teach at Hunter, and 90% of the class is usually women, right? So at any rate, yeah, I got a yeah over here. Yeah. That's not a bad thing, Okay. So at any rate. That's what we actually used to do, and it was very time consuming. And you can imagine they made a mistake, they were going back over. They'd have to go back over thousands of calculations, and so on and so forth, and track them back again. And they did make mistakes, and they have to correct them. Okay, so spreadsheets really changed the game entirely. So spreadsheets very important to us. That's why we're going to learn how to do some of this stuff with Excel, and we'll take a look at how it impacts a specific kind of calculations that we're going to be doing. Hidden Figures. I got somebody on. Andrew, thank you very much. See, if I catch the chat, if I look at the chat box instead of talking to you guys, I think I'll be ahead of the game. So at any rate, another kind of program that we come across, we're dealing with it too much, is a database program. Database programs are programs that are designed to handle large volumes of information, say telephone books full of names, addresses, phone numbers, data, gender, so on and so forth. And they're designed specifically for being able to organize that data, to reference that data, to sort the data, and so on and so forth. They're not quite as convenient for calculations, because usually you have to write some sort of program to extract the information from database programs. But there are still many of them, DBase, FoxPro, a whole bunch of them that are still around, that are still very popular. Oracle is an example of a company that they just really basically are a giant networkable database programs, set of database programs. Okay, and I'll get into that. SPSS now, even though it looks similar to Excel, it's what we call a vertical software, which means that unlike Excel, which has a lot of different functions, you can use it for a lot of different things, SPSS is built for one specific purpose. It's vertical. It's for statistical analysis. I'm going to be opening it up and demonstrating it, perhaps. And I say perhaps because it's possible that my version of SPSS has expired, because I'm waiting for the guys at School of Public Health to release the license. Yeah, they're having a problem with the licensing and stuff like that. I'm not even sure if it's running on here. We might be able to get you guys to start it up on here. Okay, so we're going to be working with that stuff. So the first thing we're going to talk about, now that we're getting into now that we're going to start to talk about, get away from talking about the course and start talking about what we're going to wind up learning in statistics, our first topic is going to be, well, what is data? I mean, what are we going to, what is data? How are we going to handle it? What are we, how are we going to use it, and so on and so forth? Well, data is information, and there's a lot of different forms of information, but we're going to categorize them into three basic forms, right? And I'm going to break it down a little bit from that, but I'm going to break it down into numerical data, categorical data, and ordinal data. Okay, well, what do I mean by that? See, on the slide here, I got a bit more of a breakdown down there. Nominal data. Nominal data can be you got several different forms, well, a couple of different forms of nominal data. Okay, one form is just names, nominal, nom, right? Means Latin base for names, right? So name. So it could be a person's name. It could be a person's gender, male, female. That's a name. Could be a person's hair color, brunette, blonde, redhead, so on and so forth. Could be anything that's a name that doesn't have a number, that doesn't represent a number, is nominal data. Sometimes we call it categorical data. Categories, names, basically the same kind of thing. Some nominal data is binary, male and female, right? Diabetic, not diabetic. Binary dichotomous. Some of it is categorical. You can have several categories of nominal data. So if you say nominal data, categorical data, you know we're talking about things that are names, basically. Now, the next big category is numerical data. So we got nominal or categorical data. Next big category is numerical data. We can have either scalar numerical data, it's something on a scale, like height, blood pressure. There's a scale, it's 0 to 200, and so on and so forth. You can have any value in between those. Even if, when say somebody's blood pressure is 120/80 or something like that, it's really 120.001 millimeters of mercury over 80.19736. We don't bother with that because we don't need it to know to that level of precision, but that scale is continuous. It's a continuous number scale. Blood pressure, height, BMI. There's many examples of numerical scalar data, right? So we have numbers that are on a scale, continuous scale. We also have numbers that are always an integer, and usually small numbers. For instance, how many siblings do you have? How many cups of coffee did you drink today? 1, 3, 4, 9, 11, right? It's going to be a discrete number. We call that a discrete numerical variable. Okay. A lot of times we'll handle it the same way. And so we have on numerical variables, we have scalar or continuous variables, and we have discrete numerical variables, basically integers, things we count. Okay, so we have one other form of data that we're going to deal with just a little bit, not too much. Well, it'll come up a little bit, but a lot of times in this course we'll handle it like basically like nominal data for the most part, but it's ordinal data. Ordinal data is names, it's nominal data, but it doesn't represent a specific scale like blood pressure or height or something like that, but it has some order, right? So for instance, if I were to ask you, how do you rate this course so far? Poor, fair, good, excellent, right? Those are the categories, right? Those are categories. Those are names, fair, poor, good, right? They're names just like hair color would be, except they have a distinct order. Fair is better than good. Fair is better than poor. Good is better than fair. Excellent is better than good. So they have a specific order. Do we know whether the difference between good and excellent is bigger than the difference between fair and poor? No, we can't really define that, right? No way to really define that. I'll give you another example of it. What's the name for the scale that you use to describe pain on a scale of 1 to 10? Has a specific name. What's that? Pain scale. Okay, pain scale. I thought that was someone's name, like some doctor's name or something like that originated, or some researcher's name that originated. It might. I could be wrong. But pain scale, right? How much pain are you in? Well, it's a 6, doctor. It's terrible. It's a 6. Your 6 may be different than another person's 6. There's no way for us to compare them. Oh, okay, here's a couple of aspirin. What is it now? It's a 4, right? Oh, that's pretty good. Is the difference for that person, is the difference between a 6 and a 4 different than the difference between a 4 and a 2? Nowhere for us to measure it. So we don't look at it as a specific number scale. We look at it as categories that have a specific order, right? And so that we call that a special kind of data, nominal data or categorical data that we call ordinal data. So in SPSS simplifies that a bit because these 3 different groups primarily kind of focus the way that you're going to handle the data statistically. Nominal data is going to be handled differently than numerical or scale, what they call scalar data. It's going to be handled differently than ordinal data. So even though this seems like trivial stuff, it turns out to be pretty important as we progress in the semester. By the time we get to the end of the semester, we're going to learn that if we want to apply the t-test, it only works with certain kinds of data. If we want to apply chi-square, we're going to be learning about the chi-square test. It only works with certain kinds of data. Odds ratio only works with certain kind of data. Regression only works with certain kinds of combinations of data and so on and so forth. So it's important for us to understand what kind of data that we're working with so that we know what tests we have to apply. So if you look at, if I have a piece of wood in here and it's got and it's attached to something and you need to get it unattached, if you look at it and you see a nail, you know you need a hammer, right, with a claw on it, right? If you see a screw, you need a screwdriver. If it's and then maybe it's a Phillips head or whatever. That same kind of thing here. We're going to look at the data and then we'll know what tool we need to work with that data. So even though this seems trite, this actually is one of the more important things we're going to learn in the first couple of sessions here, is identifying this kind of data. It would be wonderful if we could work with the data for entire populations. In other words, if I wanted to know, is the average blood pressure for Americans different from the average blood pressure for Frenchmen in the same age group? I'll narrow it down a little bit. Males, 40 to 60, non-smokers. In America versus in France, is the average blood pressure for those 2 populations, are they different or are they the same? Okay. Well, be interesting because then I might want to pursue, well, if Frenchmen's average blood pressure is lower, maybe there's a difference in diet. Maybe there's a reason why I want to know why it's lower, right? But gee, if I can measure every person in the population, I would know what the average is. It'd be an easy, I wouldn't even have to think about it. I just look at the 2 numbers and compare them, and I'd know what the averages were. Problem is that we rarely have the resources to collect data for entire populations, unless they're small, very small populations, right? So like in the United States, we're not going to measure blood pressure, blood sugar levels for everybody in the country, or even entire groups in the country, right? It's just not available. It's not feasible, right? We have financial limitations, privacy issues, so on and so forth, right? So there's a difference between the variables we're interested in, like the mean and the variability and so on and so forth for the population, versus what we're almost always going to be working with in this class, which is a sample from that population. So instead of knowing what the population mean is, which means we wouldn't need statistics, instead we're going to be working with a sample from that population, almost always. So for instance, if I might want to take a random sample of 100 people in the United States, 100 males in that age range in the United States, compare them to a random sample of 100 people, 100 men in that population in France, and see if the average of the sample in America is different than the average sample male in France. Well, does it tell us for sure that is that really the same as taking the population? No. But using statistics, we can start to understand what is the probability that we really, if we see a difference, that it's a real difference in the population means, and not just in the samples that we've taken. Obviously, the bigger the sample is, the more confidence that we can be that we're getting close to what the population means in the 2 countries are, right? Or what percentage of people are diabetic, if I'm talking with nominal data, diabetic and not data like a proportion, right? If I'm dealing with nominal data, how many people would I have to sample in each country in order to be pretty sure that that if I get 18% here and 20% here, that's a real difference, and not just, sampling error, just chance that happen to be, that's really the same. But, if you take two samples from the same population, they're not going to be the same, right? In other words, take a sample, 100 people from people in Brooklyn, 10% of them in the first sample you take are a random sample or a diabetic, and then take the sample again, except this time 9% are. Which one's right? Right? There's a lot of variability when you take sampling. So what we're going to do in this course is going to help us understand when we take a statistical test like that, how much confidence can we have in that? And how can we apply that effectively? When we talk about populations, we talk about the information about the population in terms of something called parameters. When we talk about samples, we're talking about the similar information, but we call it statistics. So the average blood pressure in the United States is mu, the Greek letter mu, little u, right? We use mu if we knew what the average blood pressure is, right? If we take a sample of 1,000 people, the average blood pressure for those 100 people, we would indicate that as an X with a bar. You don't have the bar over the top here. It disappeared for some reason. X with a bar over the top, right? X bar. I would call it X bar, but you'd see it with an X with a little straight line over the top of it. You've seen it before, I think. If I look at something called a variable, there's something that describes a variable called standard deviation, right? You've probably heard that term before. Don't worry about it if you don't know what it is. We're going to be getting to that really quickly. Okay, when we know what the standard deviation or variability of a population is, we call that sigma, Greek letter. We call that standard deviation, or SD, or S even, for a statistic, and so on and so forth. There's something called chi-square, and so on. Whenever we're talking about population, you'll see us use a Greek letter. Whenever we're talking about a result from a sample, or a statistic from a sample, you'll see us using regular English notation. We're going to be learning about how to organize and display data, right? So for instance, here's a whole bunch of numbers. The population distribution of New York State on the left. And what we've done is we've broken up into groups and so on and so forth to make it easier to understand what the population distribution, what percentage of people are within a certain age group in New York City, how age is distributed among comparing males and females. Even we have both data. It makes it easier to understand the data than just having a list of ages, right? Which might be 8 million ages, if you can imagine, just simply, or 4 million and 4 million ages for males and females listed, which would be impossible to interpret. We can organize it into tables. We're going to learn how to do that as well. So this makes it easier to understand. Not a whole lot easier to understand, right? Not obvious just by glancing at that table. But we can organize that information into graphics, into tables, so that we can see information that's numerical information that's displayed like this in a table, frequency table, and we can see it graphically, right? So this is a bar chart, right? So this is the kind of way that we might display nominal data, names, right? So for instance, the variable here is hair color. How many values can hair color have? In this case, it can have 4 values, right? Red, brown, blonde, and black, right? And how many people in my sample have that hair color? So you can see on this bar chart, you can see there were 2 people that have red hair. You have 12 people that have brown hair, and 4 blondes, and 9 brunettes. And it's easy to see the comparison here. I could have had a table like this that just had the numbers in there, but this makes this communicates it a bit more effectively than this, right? You know what they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, or something like that. Okay. So here's a whiskey, another kind of bar chart, a whiskey bar chart. Here's a candy bar chart. Wait, so what's missing now? What's the next one? Yes, we had a whiskey bar chart, a candy bar chart. There's one more. Sushi bar chart. Okay. So we got something else called a histogram. Okay. So now that one I didn't get much laughs out of that, so I may have to go back and edit that out. I don't know, maybe too much trouble. Okay, so now we got a different kind of chart here. Okay, so this is called a histogram. You notice something right off the bat, right, a difference you can see right off the bat between that chart and this chart. What do you see right away? They're right next to each other. There's no gaps between them, right? Well, that's because the information here is displaying information about a numerical variable, not red hair, blonde hair, and so on and so forth. It's a numerical variable. So literally, each person, each one of these 6 different people, the side here is the frequency, number of people that are represented for each bar, and this represents everybody between 139.5, 149.5 pounds, height, inches rather, millimeters, centimeters, I guess, right? Centimeters, right? And you're either going to be in this group or the next group or the next group or the next group. You're not going to be in between. There's not going to be any gaps. So if you are 139.7 centimeters tall, you're in this green bar. If you're 4 centimeters tall, you're in the yellow box before it. So histograms are continuous. They're ways of grouping and displaying numerical information. So we have a difference between a bar chart and a histogram. Okay, is this a bar chart or a histogram, male and female? Bar chart, right? How about this is the birth weight of 32 lambs? That's a histogram, right? Numerical data. Notice already we're starting to see a distinction between the way we work with categorical and numerical nominal data and the way we work with numerical data. This is not another kind of chart that we use for numerical variables. And if you'll notice, if you look over here on the right side, okay, okay. Oh, it's a what is it? Wong-Baker Faces Pain Rating Scale. Cool. Wong-Baker Faces Pain Rating Scale. So yeah, I guess the bright people stayed home for this session. People that know the answers stayed. I'm kidding. I'm joking. So at any rate, so let's take a look at this chart on the right-hand side. It's called a box plot. We use these quite a bit. Another form of graphics that we use with numerical data. Okay, and ignoring for a moment my mouse, which I lost, there it is. Ignoring that little red dot over there for a moment. If I look at this box plot at the bottom here, again this is a category. This is actually, if you look at this, this is each one of these. This is broken up into groups, nominal variables, and but it's numerical data about each group. So this first one is red maples. This is sugar maples. This is black maples, and on the vertical axis, it's the diameter of the tree, and the red represents trees that were in full sun, and the blue represents ones that were in part sun. So we're comparing them. So if I go over to the right-hand side here, you can see that this is that first box that you see there. Okay, it's red maples, and this box represents the distribution of the tree diameters for maples, red maples that were in full sunlight, right? So what can we see from that? We can see that this bottom little, we call the feather here, this bottom thin little line over here tells us that the smallest diameter in this sample of trees that we took, the smallest diameter was, and again, lost my mouse, is about 12 inches in diameter. The thickest diameter among these red maple trees is about 18 inches in diameter. So I can see that right off the bat, that this is the range of tree diameters, right, in my sample of those trees. This red box here, the middle line in here, the middle line goes through this red box. That's the median. That's the middle value. That's a statistic that we use with numerical variables called the median. It's a little bit different than the average. The mean is the arithmetic average for all of the tree thicknesses. That's not what this is, what this particular thing is in box plots. That's the median. The median is the 50th percentile. It's the middle thickness. Half the trees are thicker than that. Half the trees are thicker than 15 inches. Half the trees are thinner than 15 inches. Okay, so, well, what does the red box represent? And again, My mouse keeps disappearing. Well, the bottom of the red box represents the 25th percentile, right? 25% of the trees are thinner than then looks like about 12 and a half inch, about 13 inches or something like that. And this represents the 75th percentile, the top of that red box. So we got the 25th percentile, the 50th percentile, 75th percentile. 75th percentile means that 75% of the trees are thinner than 17 inches and 25% are thicker, right? And so I can, at a glance, get an idea of the distribution of the tree thicknesses here. The 25th percentile to the 75th percentile has a special name. This range between 13 inches and 17 inches, the top and the bottom, called the interquartile range, the middle quartile range, right? 25th percentile to 75th percentile. Oops. Okay. So if you look over here, the reason why this is such a nice way to display numerical data is look how easily I can compare red maples that are in full sun versus red maples that are in part sun. I can see the variability in thickness is much bigger for the second group than the first group. I can see the middle value, the median, is much bigger than the second group. Now over here for sugar maples, I can see that the median thickness for sugar maples in full sun, they like full sun, so 50%. So it looks like the median value is much bigger, much more variable than the ones that are in part sun, and so on. So again, I have an opportunity to compare this numerical data very effectively using this box plot. Now, going back to this first one here, anybody want to hazard a guess what that red dot is? That's an outlier. That means that they came across one tree. Remember, I lied to you. I said the highest number that they measured was 18 inches, the top feather. In fact, the highest number they measured was 24 inches. It's so different than all of the other values that SPSS plotted it outside of the normal range of numbers. It made that decision because it's so much further away from the upper quartile that it's questioning whether that data is accurate or not. You can actually Excel basically takes the upper quartile plus 50%, and anything more than that it calls an outlier. You can change that criteria if you want to, right? And it separates it like that, so you can see it as an outlier. You can click on that in SPSS. It'll tell you which value that is. And why do you do that? Well, gee, maybe there's something wrong with it. It wants you to know that it looks like it's possible that there may be something wrong with that data. Perhaps someone misidentified a sugar maple as a red maple. So you should go back and re-examine that data. You have to make a decision on whether it's really an outlier or not. SPSS is just alerting you to the fact that it might possibly be an outlier. Everybody comfortable with that? Pretty good, right? This box plot stuff. Pretty good way to see stuff. Well, how about when you have data that you have two numbers that are both numerical data, right? So for instance, if I were to want to compare, see if there's an association between a husband's age and the wife's age, see if those numbers are correlated. If that correlation from now on, we should use as a statistical term, right? Rather than kind of in, general, the way we would use it in general. We're going to be defining it as a number, a calculation correlation. So we want to know if we compare a husband's age to a wife's age, is there an association there? Okay, so the way we do that is when we do it graphically, is we take the husband's age, let's say the husband is 45, we take the wife's age, let's say she is 43, and we plot that on an XY coordinate. It's a dot on an XY coordinate. So this person right here, I'm going to take one that's a little bit above all the rest. This person, the husband is 52 years old, and the wife is, and the wife is 63 years old or something like that. This person, the husband is, the X coordinate, or the husband's age is 57, and the wife's age looks to be about 49 or something like that. Okay, so we can see in general, there is an association between the husband's age and the wife's age. If there were no association, what would we expect to see? We'd expect to see these dots over there like randomly, like a cloud. right? No random, no organization to the way these stops are displayed. Okay. Does this look like real data, by the way? Right? You don't have any trophy wives here, right? So you don't have any old guys here with like, with 35-year-old wives down here, 30-year-old wives. Where are those guys, right? So we made that. That data obviously is made up, right? Okay. So I want to show a quick video demonstrating this. And then we're going to go into some hands-on practice. We're gonna take before we go into hands-on practice, we're going to take a break though. But I want to show you this one video. And the only problem with it is sound's going to be a little issue on this. So I'm going to play it so that you can see it up there. And see, it's on Blackboard. If you want to play it for yourself, actually it's hidden right now. I'll make sure it's available later on. I'm going to play it so you can see it. You guys will be able to see it online as we watch it. I'll have to delete it because there's an issue with copyright on my embedding other stuff in here. So I'm going to have to delete it when I get to the recording, when I edit the recording. But I'm going to play this here. You're going to have to listen to the sound off of my computer.